Hello, good morning, happy Monday. We are continuing on a Rust Diesel course journey. And if I remember correctly, we finished the assessment last time. Asitsu, hello, and Diablo. You start very eloquently off with just simply cat. I did see Zilby just before this. He's in the other room. Let me go get him and let me see if he'll want to hang out here. So let me open this window ahead of time and maybe he'll want to hang out with us. So I will be right back with Kat. All right, I am back. We've got Kat. I recently had one of my friends come over with his professional camera and he took some photos of Zilby, which is really nice. So eventually, I need to edit those, get them all set up, and to go. And maybe we can use them as like I don't know, rewards or events or something like that. They're just static. We don't have any videos. Are you done? Or oh, he saw birds. It's okay. Let me see if I can set up this camera. Cat can. He must continue the hunt for brain cells and/or squirrels. In this case, I think it's birds. He knows where to go for squirrels. We have a a feeder set up in the front yard, and so some squirrels come by and hang out there right in front of the window. And so Zilby loves looking at them. And they don't scream at Zilby quite so often anymore, which is always nice. All right, so back on to this. Uh, so we now have all these lessons for us to work on. We've done, I guess, like technically we did this. Although I'm gonna need to do a video of completing the assessment too. But that's that's neither here nor there. Uh, let's start off at the beginning here, I guess. Which is well. Also, there's this thing. Why introduction to diesel course? What? I wonder why I'm not why I didn't like mark that as complete. Do I just need to like review this maybe? I know that Zilby's blocking a little bit, which is unfortunate, but that's the price of Zilby, right? Introduction to Diesel course. Welcome to the Diesel course. In this course, you'll learn everything you need to get started with Diesel in your projects. Before we get started, let's go over the versions of Diesel, Rust, and other libraries that we'll be using. Rust, Diesel, and oh, Docker, Postgres. Let's change this to tools. What version of Docker do I have? I guess I might as well look at this one. Will that tell me the version of Docker? Okay, Docker Engine 2720. Is that going to be too confusing? Should I use Docker Engine, or should I just because Docker Engine 2720, and then Postgres. What am I using here? Can I will this show me? Diesel rest Postgres. Oh, I'm just using Postgres latest. That's the problem there. Okay. Ooh, latest. Will you tell me what version of Postgres this is? I mean, I'm assuming. Ooh. Will this actually have Postgres? Oh, vulnerabilities? No. Packages? 1701. So we'll do 17.x. Okay, there we go. I don't know why I was doing my X for delete character again. I forgot the Helix commands, apparently. I did use some Vim the other day because I had to SSH into a server and do some stuff, and I didn't want to install Helix. So that's the thing. Diesel is an ORM, object relational mapping library. Object relational mapping is a fancy way of saying objects, think structs in the case of Rust, and mapping them to tables in the database. One of the big draws of ORMs is that they make complex joins. Should we say extremely easy or easier? Also, if I remember correctly, Diesel now isn't actually doing all of the like multiple queries that we thought that they were doing. Yeah, so one of the big draws of ORMs is that they make complex joins extremely easy at the cost of performance. This can make adding new features, fixing bugs, and otherwise changing the code much faster. Diesel. Okay. Not all ORMs are make equal, are made equal. How about just are equal? And some ORMs are easier to use than others, or make certain problems easier than others. For example, Diesel is specialized in speed while also providing query abstraction, also providing the ability to write query logic queries in Rust, while not being as strong as other ORMs with extremely complex joints. Okay. Query building is also part of Diesel, and this includes security features like parameterization, which prevents SQL injection attacks. Why Diesel? Diesel, like other ORMs, seek to simplify working with real-life databases and make interfacing with your data in the language of your choice. In this case, Rust. This means that you write your queries in Rust, Diesel converts them to SQL and runs them for you, and converts the resulting data back into your structs. If we're working with extremely data scheme... What? What was I thinking here? Okay, so if we're working with extremely complex data schemas, then Diesel may not be a great choice. However, if we have complicated database schemas and or tables that should be but aren't actually related to each other with foreign keys, the other ones will do that too. So I don't actually know if this is actually that big of a deal. So I think we'd just get rid of that entire paragraph. Is this the right course for you? If you are unsure if you want to learn Diesel, then try watching the course creation VODs. And I actually do have a playlist for this series of VODs. So let me find those. Right. YouTube moved that into channel content. Playlist, creating Diesel course. There it is. Where this is created. It's unedited, so you'll get to see how this is all created, plus all the times that Brooks got distracted. If you know you want/need to learn Diesel and haven't used it before, then this course is probably for you. If you are an expert at Diesel already, then this is probably not the curse for you. Why am I saying curse today? That's interesting. Okay, so I think now we can mark you as done. All right, setting up Postgres database with Docker. I have to do that to copy it to you. It's nearing Halloween and the witches are coming to get me. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Or Zilby's cursing me every night because I don't always get up to feed him. And sometimes when he comes and lays on top of me, I move. And therefore he has to like get up and go walk around the house and do other stuff before trying again. I know, I'm a horrible person. Okay, so let's come over here. And we will touch you. Oh, I probably want, yeah. I would love to add in underscores so that, hold on. Setting up Postgres database with Docker. Okay. All right. So this course requires that we use a database. This course requires that we use a database, and this guide will be used useful, helpful. Will help you walk you through setting up a Postgres database using Docker. To use this guide, okay, Docker. So let's see. You have this Docker engine. Oh, that's Docker engine. Right. It's Docker. Yeah, Docker desktop. Install. Okay, we'll do something like this. Okay, so you'll need to install Docker first. You are on Windows or Mac. We'll need to install Docker desktop. Up and Zilby's done. But if you are on a Linux system, you can install the Docker engine directly. Okay. This is going to be a slow week. You're waiting for your next laptop to be announced. Oh, is that happening this week? Like, is it, or like, I remember, like, various companies all do it in their different sort of times. But so far, I've been happy with mine. So, unless they add something in that's going to be like, you have to have this, I'm like, oh, yeah. Like maybe a new desktop would be a new thing for me, but that's mostly because I want to be able to run bigger, better video cards. Okay, so if you're using Windows, you need to install this directly. Okay, so this is prerequisites. To verify that Docker is set up properly and working for us, can run the command. So if I try Docker images, that will show a bunch of images. But if I turn off, for example, Docker, yeah, that fails. So we can run the command Docker images. Okay. No event this time, just a Twitter post with a week. New iMac today, mini and MacBooks another day. Okay. Interesting. Have they done that before? They love, like, Apple loves their events. They have to defend the use of that, like the creation of that entire studio thing that they created. All right, to verify that Docker is set up properly and working for, okay, so we do that. To create a database, how about to create a Postgres database? And let's actually link this. Okay, so that links to hub.docker.com. Okay, so to create a Postgres database, we'll use following command. How about we'll run? And what did I do for this one? It was Docker run. Oh, this is good enough. Oh, lovely new lines that I got in there. Okay, so Docker run. Okay, there we go. So to create a Postgres database, we'll run Docker run -d -- name diesel rest course diesel rest course Postgres Postgres password. Okay, so to break this down, or let's break this down. So we have Docker run. This is the base Docker command to spin up a container from an image. Daemon mode. Run the container in the background. All right, so override. Is it 2 R's? I think it is. Override the default name of the container with our own. If we don't include this, then Docker will choose a random name for us. Okay. After that, we have E. Okay, so set an environment variable named ooh. Is it double? Like that? I think it is. Okay, so set an environment variable named Postgres password with the value with the keyword cat inside the container. For the Postgres, okay, so for the Postgres image, this will this is required. Note that we don't have an environment variable for the account name. Okay, so we have that. I've been missing stuff. Oh, they've done it a few times. Okay. And Shandu, hello. How are you doing today? So an ORM should convert from Rust syntax to SQL queries with a transpiler. Is that the solution? Yeah. So I don't know if it's a transpiler. I don't know if you would like necessarily call it a transpiler here. I believe it's using macros, and I believe it's using a combination of macros and also runtime builder, like sort of like the builder pattern logic, in order to create the SQL queries and then run them when they want. Yeah. And that's one of the, like, not all ORMs are required for running in the language of your choice, right? Like there are some query builders out there that will allow you to run just Rust code or JavaScript code or Python code or whatever, and then it turns it into the queries too. So those are like query builders essentially. And all ORMs generally use a query builder behind the scenes in order to do that. Whether or not they build their own or they use something else, that's a different question altogether. Our Carlos, hello. Learning Rust at the moment, reading the Zero to Prod book. What do you recommend next? Probably a project of some kind. Like figure out the project on your own, work through that, and then whatever issues that you have with that project, then there are some materials that you can choose to go through to sort of like get past that. But that's really going to depend upon where you run into trouble. Does that make sense? That's my suggestion. Okay. This is create a Docker volume with the name Diesel Rust course and set it to store the data at var lib PostgreSQL data. This allows us to recreate recreate our database, our container without losing any data. And then finally, okay, so P 8432 5432 override the, or I guess like it's not just a port. It's set the ports on the host system 8432 that is connected to the port in the container 5432. This can be whatever you want, as long as it is above the, what is it? Is the reserved system ports. We recommend, or it's recommended, we recommend to use a port number above 3000. Okay. All right, makes a lot of sense, and thanks. Awesome. Yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask away. Okay, and then finally, Postgres. The name of the image to use. In this case, we didn't add in a tag, so the latest version of the database will be pulled. The latest version of the image will be pulled. Okay, so that should be good. Let's grab everything out. So if I do shell, okay, so if we come here, I'm going to do the Docker run for that. Let's delete these things. Let's what is it? Volume remove diesel, what? Oh, Docker volume remove. Oh, yeah, it would be helpful if I turn Docker back on again. I was like, why isn't my autocomplete working? Okay, so Docker volume remove diesel rest course. The volume is in use. Okay, right, because that's in there. So we have to do Docker remove diesel rest course Postgres, Docker volume remove that. Let's also remove, we can remove the assessment one, and that's going to be fine. So Docker remove diesel rust assessment. I think that's going to be fine. Also Docker remove Postgres, because I just have, I want everything with Postgres gone. Okay, so if I have that, now I can do Docker RMI Postgres. I could also look at my list over here. Search through. Still have a bunch of Postgres. Huh. Okay. Docker RMI. Oh, I have Postgres 14 and Postgres 16 bookworm. And then I can just do post. I have an in-use dangling one. Hold on, let me just get rid of. What? I don't want the title of the Shawsome. That's stupid. Oh, okay. So Docker remove 18f. Oh, okay, fine. I have to copy paste you. There we go. Okay, so everything is Docker. Everything Postgres is gone now. So now I can now we can do a Docker run. I want just this one. Grab all of you. Okay, and let's do that. Okay, so it keeps on doing this where when I'm trying to copy and paste that gives me multiple lines, which is not great on long ones. Okay, so Docker run name, we do that thing. Unable to find it locally, pull complete. Go down. Okay, so we can look to see what that the container is running properly with the docker ps command. Let's see, I see a new line there. That shouldn't be a new line. I should sort of update these to be closer together. Like, okay, so Diesel, Rust Quest Postgres. Oh, and I have that one open. I don't care about that one. Get rid of you. Okay, so container ID. Let's do 3 between each of these. So 1, 2, 3. 3. So okay, container ID, Postgres. Okay, so I probably want maybe more than 3. Hold on, I'll deal with that shortly. About a minute ago, up about a minute. The ports, and then that's great. Okay. I don't know. 3 might be okay. Because I don't know if there's a way for me to like really actually make this look good. it's gonna look wonky regardless. I guess here we'll just do 4. I did more than 4. This 5? Yeah, I did 5. Whatever, it's fine. Okay, so do that with the PS command. Finally, we can connect to our database to inspect it. Well, actually, I shouldn't do it finally. So when we're finished for the day, we want to turn off the database. Docker stop, and then this is going to be diesel rust course Postgres. And then obviously to start it will be the opposite of that. Okay. What I should do is actually just copy it from here. So we'll do Docker start. Diesel rust course Postgres. That starts it. And you are still running. Perfect. Okay, there we go. So we have you. Should I do how to delete it completely? I don't know. Okay, so Docker start diesel rust Postgres. That goes into that. Okay, let's do connect in. So finally, we can connect to the database with the command That's an interesting choice to do that. Let's do, we are using PSQL. Is that actually hosted in the Postgres? Yeah, it's in the Postgres documentation. Okay, so we are using the PSQL. We're using PSQL to what is technically to run an interactive terminal inside the database. Okay. All right, so we have Docker exec ti diesel rust course Postgres PSQL -e Postgres, and that drops us in here. Okay, there we go. And we're done. We have set up a Postgres database with Docker and are ready to use it with Diesel. Okay. Ooh, if I want to reuse this, yeah, okay. So if I want to reuse this lesson for all the different sort of database courses that I do, then I want to try to remove every time that we see Diesel. I guess let's just read through this and I'll change it at that time. Setting up Postgres database with Docker. This course requires that we use a database, and this guide will walk you through setting up a Postgres database using Docker. To use this guide, you will need to install Docker first. If you are on Windows or Mac, you will need to install Docker Desktop, but if you are on a Linux system, you can install the Docker engine directly. I should add in here, if you are planning on using a database, a Postgres database installed like locally on your system or in a cloud, then you can skip this. Okay, this course requires that we use a database, and this guide will walk you through setting up a Postgres database using Docker. If you are planning on using a Postgres database installed locally on your system or in the cloud, then you can skip this lesson. To use this guide, you will need to install Docker first. If you are on Windows or Mac, you will need to install Docker Desktop. But if you are on a Linux system, you can install the Docker engine directly. To verify the Docker is set up properly and working for us, we can run the command docker images and should either get an empty list or a bunch of images depending on if you have been using Docker before. To create a Postgres database, we'll run docker run -d name. Okay, so let's just change this to, oh, there's no, right. I was like hoping, could I change that? What I think I can do is copy you, go like this. Select you, and we're gonna change you to be Postgres. Stephen, hello. How are you doing today? Hope you're feeling better today than you were the other day. Okay, so docker run -d name Postgres, Postgres password, keyboard cat. Okay, let's use the rest course. Change. Okay, so this is gonna be Postgres data. var lib Postgres QL data 8432 Postgres. Okay, let's break this command down. Docker run. This is the base Docker command to spin up a container from an image. You're studying lead code stuff. Nice. Hopefully it's nice and doing good. I've never really been that great at lead code myself. It's one of those things like every time that it's like, okay, I need to go find a job or do something like that, it's like, okay, I'm gonna study some lead code, and then I never do in between looking for jobs, and so I'm terrible at it. Abdelhadi Sadar, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your username, but hello. How are you doing today? Okay, dash D, daemon mode, run the container in the background. Dash name Postgres. Override the default name of the container with our own. If we don't include this, then Docker will choose a random name for us. What's my favorite Tupac song? I haven't listened to Tupac in so many years. So I don't even remember the Tupac songs. So I don't know. I'd have to look them up. And even then, I don't know if I'd remember what they sound like. It's been too long. I did it spotless, don't worry. Okay, well, hopefully next time I'll also do it correct again too. I can just call you Hadi. I'll try to remember that. All right, you're doing all right? Excellent. Dash E Postgres password keyboard cat. Set an environment variable named Postgres password with the value keyboard cat inside the container. For the Postgres image, this is required. Note that we don't have an environment variable for the account name. By default, it is Postgres. Okay, so feel free to set this to be whatever password you want. Okay. Note that we don't have an environment variable for the account name. By default, it is Postgres. Dash V, Postgres data. Var live PostgreSQL data. Create a Docker volume with the name Postgres data and set it to store the data at var live PostgreSQL data. This allows us to recreate our container without losing any data. Dash P 8432 5432. Set the ports in a host system 8432 that is connected to the port in a container 5432. This can be whatever you want as long as it is above the reserved system ports. We recommend to use a port number above 3000. It is fine to use the same port from the container on the host system. So that would be the equivalent of 5432, 5432. We have noticed that if you need, or not that we have noticed, it's if you need multiple Postgres containers running at the same time, then it is recommended to use different ports on the host system for each container. All right, Postgres, the name of the image to use. In this case, we didn't add in a tag, so the latest version of the image will be pulled. This should look like, okay, so we did all that stuff. That's great. This all works. We can look to see that the container is running properly with the docker ps command. When we're finished for the day and we want to turn off the database, we can use the command docker stop Postgres. And when we're ready to continue working on the course, we can restart the database with the command docker start Postgres. Finally, we can connect to the database with the command docker exec ti PostgreSQL-u Postgres. We're using PSQL to run an interactive terminal inside the database. And we're done. We have set up a Postgres database with Docker and are ready to use it. Ready to use it. I think that's good enough. Okay, excellent. So now we can come back and say that you are done. What is it that we're doing? Right now, I'm creating a course on Diesel, and Diesel is an ORM in Rust. So basically, it's all about setting up databases, working with databases. In the last few streams, worked on the assessment for the entire course, and now we're working on the actual content. So a lot of this is going to be me writing articles, reading the articles out loud to make sure that they sound appropriate, and then just sort of like tracking which one. So we can see all the articles we want to write here. This is going to be all the content for the course, as it were. Okay. That's setting up Postgres database, Docker. All right. So the first one, we're actually doing like real stuff here. And then I think I also want to, between each of these courses, I want to commit. So all right, so what have we done? We have written introduction and setting up Postgres database. Oh, what's an ORM? An object relational model. And so it basically, an ORM is a fancy sort of like connection / management system for databases and code. There's some that are just like the driver or like very basic where you're just running in SQL directly. And an ORM allows you to go a little bit more into the logic side, usually at the cost of speed. So like, for example, in Ruby and Rails. So Rails has an ORM. It's probably the most fleshed out ORM that I've ever heard of. It's called Active Directory, which is an unfortunately named ORM because that collides with Microsoft's Active Directory. But it basically controls the entire database. You write a bunch of code to do it. It does a bunch of things. It eases up making queries while slowing. It eases up making more complex queries. So you don't even need to worry about like how all that kind of stuff works. Back when I was teaching in a classroom, we would do this exact same assessment, the bookstore assessment. And it has a many-to-many in it. And that when you're first learning databases, many-to-many joins are really difficult and like kind of tough to sort of like to wrap your mind around. An ORM just makes it a breeze, and you don't need to worry about that. We never told students that they weren't allowed to use an ORM, but and only one student ever active record. You're right. Rails' one is called Active Record, not Active Directory. All right, I confused that in my brain. Active Record. Well, still unfortunately named because my brain, it sees active and immediately goes to directory. So that's on me though. But yeah, so one student found an ORM, loaded it up, and actually got the entire assessment done in one day, whereas every other student has always taken a minimum of 2 days a minimum of a day and a half to complete the assessment. We would stop them at the end of the second day and say, okay, well, whatever you have, you're done now. But yeah, so it's ORMs tend to make things a little bit easier, and you get to focus on the logic more than the actual database stuff, as it were. Diesel is a little bit interesting because we're working with Rust stuff, and we have such a strong borrow checker and compiler and type system. It definitely makes writing ORMs much harder, which I think is one of the reasons why we don't see very many of them out right now. Pretty much we have Diesel and we have CORM as the two main competitors that I hear about from other people. There's the new one that just got announced, but it's still in incubation mode, which means that they're still trying to figure out what exactly it's going to be and what databases it's going to support. So it's way too early for that right now. But yeah, does that help? Okay. Connecting Diesel to Postgres. So that's our first one. So touch connecting Diesel to Postgres. Okay, gives an idea. Okay, excellent. All right, so let's start with objectives. I mean, I want to connect. I'm actually now. I'm curious if let's come back to our demo and let's mess with this. So we have our .env here. What was in that .env? Yeah, it's just local. It's connecting to Postgres Diesel demo, which we do not have this database up and running right now, so this should fail. So I'm actually curious if I just hard delete the migrations. This is a great idea. Also remove diesel toml. Okay, so we moved all the things. I'm gonna do diesel init setup. Oh, so it doesn't actually attempt to connect to the database. So okay, so it doesn't validate that the .env is correct. All right, so create the database URL environment variable init or setup the diesel we also need to install the diesel CLI, create the database environment variable, the database URL environment variable, set the diesel set the diesel what? Set the diesel, I mean, environment is not right. So set up diesel for the project. Okay, there we go. That's what I want. You want to share that you also make documentation for a project of your own? Would you like to see it too and give your opinion whenever you're free? You're just starting and trying to improve. Yeah, we can take a look at it. If you're okay with me looking at a stream, I can look at there. Otherwise, I do have a Discord, and you can share it there, and we can take a look at it as well. I have the link to the Discord on YouTube is in the description, and then here it is. That is a link to the Discord there as well. So either way works for me. All right, objectives. Install the diesel CLI. All right, so diesel is not only a library to, or I guess while it is it's technically possible to run everything, to run diesel, to use diesel, with just the library, the CLI tool let's see if we can find this. Where's the CLI? Okay, this is fine. Okay, while it is technically possible to use diesel with just the library, the CLI makes setting up the setting up diesel and managing the migrations much easier, and is highly recommended. To install diesel, we'll use the cargo install command. Or just like, we'll run the command. Now I'm curious, what did they have us do? Install the CLI tool. Oh, they had us do this. Oh, you can use the B install for this. Oh, I think we did this last time. Okay, so actually, you know what? I want to just send them here. To install the command, we'll follow the instructions in the getting started page for diesel. Okay. All right, you just sent it. Do you want me to look at it on stream, or I could do that after stream sometime today? When I see you say, I see you joined. I don't see that you posted anything though. I just see the wave. Do you have? Did you also actually send it on stream? Or sorry, on Discord? Feel free to throw that into the general channel. Oh, the connection went out. Sorry about that. Yeah, diesel, like the general the general channel is fine for this type of thing. It's a relatively small community still, so we don't have that much stuff going on there. All right. Why do you open up with that? All right, because I have my IP address spoof like thinger on her. That's why. Um, that didn't load for me. Yeah, it hangs. Oh, you had a typo. Okay, well that fixes that. Okay, so Shadow Network Framework. Standard that is used in Shadow Network Framework is not documented yet. This path contains documentation only for the server side of Shadow Network Framework. I've never heard of that. I don't know what that is. See also links to the client. Available documentation. You have the C language stuff. You have your versions. Is this documentation for programmers? It looks fine. I appreciate that you start in night mode. That's always nice. But yeah, all this looks great. Oh, it auto detects night mode? Okay. I must have night mode on then. All right, and so here's the blog article. A networking framework that follows its own protocol over TCP. What's the purpose of Shadow Network framework? Made for one purpose, to simplify networking and ease the making of client server communication. One might say making websites with a RESTful backend is simple. Too, so why would one? Well, if it's following its own protocol, that I guess okay. So you're not using something like that's not TCP over the network, but all right, that makes sense. One may let's see, does not intend to replace any already protocols, but actually extend them. By example, the future releases of S7F will have support to use it over HTTPS or WebSockets, and also mainly simplifying making servers using C language and possibly in the future using Zig or Rust, and simplify clients based upon. Okay, yeah. So basically, it's just another server client protocol. That's nice, cool. And it's super early on in the days. I mean, I think that the documentation here is looking great. Okay, so I guess one thing is in this documentation. Oh, I guess because this is a blog. Yeah. Okay. So never mind. That's fine. I do feel that dropping you into something by default, like there's a lot of clicks to get to where I want to go. Does that make sense? Like I would rather just go straight to here with some way to change where, like which version or something else that I want from from here. That was a lot of clicks to get in. Are you going to create a new petrol validation package? Pun intended. Those are the questions, right? Yeah, I think that the latest version should be shown first. Just think about like trying to minimize the number of clicks that a user has to go through in order to get to what they want to get to. That's the biggest thing. But then once you're here, this looks great. Like it's, you're welcome. You have installation. You have how to do things. You have documentation on all the stuff. So, I mean, I think this is fine. At this point, it would probably be more of finding somebody who's using it and asking them what changes would they like to see. But yeah, looks great. All right. Thanks for sharing that. All right, let's get back to this documentation. We can verify that the CLI was installed correctly with the diesel version command. Okay, so we do that. All right, so we now have you. So that was installing the diesel CLI. Create the database URL environment variable. So database URL environment variable. All right, so diesel expects that the database connection string. What is that called? There's a word for the actual connection string thing. I should find out what they're calling it and use theirs. Okay. Okay, fine. Okay, so database diesel expects that we have a connection, a database connection URI set up in an environment variable named database URL. We can okay, so we can easily set this up with a .env file as diesel uses okay. Diesel expects that we have a database connection URI set up in an environment variable named database URL. We can easily set this up with a .env file as diesel uses .env behind the scenes to auto-load the contents of the .env file. Because we might put on Windows, let's just set, so create the .env file and set, I guess we only need one line. Okay, so we only need one line in the file right now, which is okay. Database URL equals Postgres : / Postgres keyboard cat localhost 8433 Postgres. I don't I just hate, I've always hated that they call this a URL. They shouldn't call this a URL because this is not a URL, it's a URI. But that's the thing. Let's see. What did I miss? Is Diesel a Postgres only ORM? No, it is not. It's a SQL-based ORM. So it works with, out of the box, it works with Postgres, MySQL, MariaDB, SQLite, I believe. And there might be a few others that are SQL-based, but I don't remember or know them off the top of my head. But yeah, it requires a driver. And so you can see the drivers that I have installed here. Where are they? Had it, well. See here, we can see Postgres, MySQL, SQLite. Those are my supported backends right now, and that's because I have all three of those drivers installed. So MariaDB could be used to replace MySQL. Okay, this is the protocol of the URI. Let's do like an aside. What is a URI? Okay, we'll come back to that later. This is the protocol of the URI. Next is Postgres keyboard cat. This is the username colon password. Okay, so this is the username and password for the database that we'll be connecting to. The password has a colon. A colon separates the username and password. Okay, so since the password is included in the .env file, it's important to add this file to the to your get ignore file. We recommend you do this immediately at the beginning of each project. So you don't accidentally expose secrets to GitHub or wherever you are hosting your code. Okay, so we have keyboard cat. Next up, localhost. This is the location. This is the path. No, this is the location. So this is the host name. Might look like something like db.mydomain.com. Something like that. Okay. So this is just a course for Postgres? No, so this is a course for Diesel. Diesel can connect to multiple different types of databases. One of the benefits of using an ORM is that it abstracts away what type of database that you're using. So it actually doesn't matter if it's SQLite or if it's Postgres or MySQL or MariaDB or something like that. You write the exact same code and it will turn it into the appropriate query behind the scenes for you. And there's very subtle differences between the multiple databases. and those are sort of like important to realize that happens. This password should not have symbols like at or percent. It can cause issues while reading this URL. Oh yeah. That's a good point. Passwords. If the password has, because I believe that in here I can use a URL encoded. So if the password has special characters, then they must be URL encoded. Okay. Thank you for that, Udkars. Nuzaka Peko. Sorry about butchering your username. Hello, how are you doing today? New to tech, I learned Python, but I don't know how to implement it to make something. I just know how to code, to self-learn. Okay, so are you looking to make something? So like it's awesome that you learned Python and you can make code. And I mean, at that point you can make something. It's really just going to be about identifying what a problem is that you want to solve with code. So that's, I mean, sometimes that's actually one of the hardest parts, is figuring out what you want to make. Skimmis, hello. Why do you say that it's not a URL? You're giving it a host and ported resource and database name, so you've completely located a resource. How is that now the URL? So yeah, okay. So let's go into this. You are I all right, so it's a uniform resource identifier as opposed to URL, which is a uniform resource locator. And I think, okay, so here, they, over the next 3.5 years, as the World Wide Web's core technologies of HTML, HTTP, and web browsers developed, a need to distinguish a string that provided an address for a resource from a string that merely named a resource emerged. Although not yet formally defined, the term Uniform Resource Locator came to represent the former. So anything HTTP is Uniform Resource Locator, and everything else is URI. And URI is an inclusive term. So and URI is HTTP : and Postgres : URL is only HTTP : That's the idea. Now, this is a debate. I don't think that everybody agrees with me, but it's the way that I've sort of like I don't know, I was taught, and so it okay, that's where I'm sort of like feeling about it. And technically, you're probably gonna run into people, those. I don't have my glasses here, so I can't do the glasses push-up thing. They're in my other drawer. But it'd be like, well, technically, that's not a URL. That's a URI. If somebody were to come in to like, if somebody took my course then and gave a meetup talk and then said like URL and then do that, somebody in the back of the room is going to say that. I know. So anyways, does that make sense, Skimmis? You worked in multiple languages like Python, Rust, JavaScript, Go, and Java. So far, your favorite is Python and Rust. Nice. URL is not just HTTP. What else is it for? Any scheme is fine for you all. Well, and I think that's where it gets confusing, right? Because it's really all it is just it like because the formats are the same regardless. I do like this. In August 2002, RFC 3305 pointed out that the term URL had, despite widespread public use, faded into near obsolescence. I disagree with that. It is not obsolete. We'll get back. Okay, so Music Expo, we will get back to you and calculator stuff as soon as we're done chatting about this. Yeah, we can figure out what this is. Let's see. The semantic web uses the HTTP URI scheme to identify both documents and concepts for practical uses, a distinction which has caused confusion as to how to distinguish the two. The tag published an email in 2005 with a solution of the problem, which became known as the HTTP Range 14 resolution. The W3C subsequently published an interest group note titled Cool URIs for the Semantic Web, which explained the use of content negotiation and the HTTP 303 response code for redirections. But that doesn't help. And then I like this. A uniform resource locator, so URL, is a URI that specifies the means of acting upon or obtaining the representation of a resource. So basically, URLs are URIs. A URI has a scheme that refers to a specification for assigning identifiers within that scheme. As such, the URI syntax is a federated and extensible naming system wherein each scheme specification may further restrict the syntax and semantics of identifiers using that scheme. The URI generic syntax is a superset of the syntax of all URI schemes. Okay, so it's just like, oh, here it is. Okay, so finalized in 3986, which was 3 years after that other one. Yeah. And then you have the entire URI. So scheme, authority, username, all that stuff. And then, okay, so let's go up to the URL. Just an address on a web. And then if I remember correctly, you're not allowed to have username and password. Can you? Because like, okay, well, that's a URI. So you're still calling it URI here. Okay, why does URL have all the exact same URI stuff just copy pasted into it? Yeah, this thing, I've never liked this, but okay. The URL one just talks about URIs, which is great. You notice it literally the same in URI that's written in URL's wiki. Yeah, I know. It doesn't help with the confusion. Okay, let's try this. MDN URI URL. Let's see if I almost said Microsoft. That's really wrong here. Mozilla. If Mozilla has this. Uniform resource identifiers are used to identify resources on the web. They are commonly used as targets of HTTP requests, in which case the URI represents a location for a physical resource such as a document, a photo, binary data, etc. URIs can also be used to trigger behaviors other than fetching a resource, including opening the email client, sending text messages, or executing JavaScript when used in other places such as the href of an HTML link. So that's URIs. URLs. The most common form of URI is the Uniform Resource Locator, URL, which is known as the web address. Okay, and then they break it down. They don't really have like a when to use one. So basically the end result is what is the URL? I don't know if this will help. It's going through all those things. No, that's not. Okay, let's try difference between URL, URI. Let's see if we can find any source that I trust. Auth0 has one that could be interesting. It's the only top level one that I have. I know the term Uniform Resource Locator refers to the subset of URIs. Basically, a URL is a URI, and a URL is a URI. A URI is like the entire thing. So it's an umbrella. It's the umbrella term. The ultimate source is always the RFC, but you have suggested that as well. Yeah, I don't want to tell people to go to RFCs. That's rough. Maybe I'll just do like a rant video about how URLs and URIs are just stupid, and we should just choose one and stick with it. Because like, okay, what's the difference? Why are you so bad? No, stop. So the URL, we've been through all this before. URI, yeah, not really the same thing. Okay, so they follow the same specification. RFC 3986. We could go take a look at that next. Okay, URLs locate a resource. URI identifies a resource. I mean, that's a good sort of like addition to the shared pool meeting we have going on here. But okay, then it goes into specific things. And then how many pages are you? So they're so long. It's 61 pages. Of course. A URI can be further classified as a locator, a name, or both. The term Uniform Resource Locator refers to the subset of URIs that, in addition to identifying a resource, provide a means of locating the resource by describing its primary access mechanism. The term Uniform Resource Name has been used historically to refer to both URIs under the URN scheme. Okay. Instances of URIs from any given scheme may have the characteristics of names or locators, or both, often depending on the persistence and care of in the assignment of identifiers by the naming authority, rather than on the quality of the scheme. So basically, I don't like how it just gets so confusing, because if they're allowed to just share properties with each other, then why have a difference in names? So yeah, okay, fine. I will just call them URLs. And I'll just switch over to URLs from now on. Okay, yeah. So can I help you now? So let's go back and see what you said before. It was, how do I see your messages? There. Can explain how does one make a calculator app? He tried searching on YouTube, but he didn't find anything. Just learning won't. Yeah. So what you're struggling with right now is how do I close you now? Come on. Stop. I did not mean to pin that message. Refresh all chat, and then unpin. Okay, so yes, you're right about that. Okay, so when you're creating any kind of application or anything with code that has any meaning, it's important to try to break things down into as small parts as possible. So you're running into trouble where you have like this sort of like this knowledge in one context over here, and you want to apply it in these sort of murky other contexts over here. Like, I know how to add multiple things together in Python, but how do I create a calculator app? Those are I mean, it's the same code, but it's two different contexts. And so if you break down the problem into how you would do it if you were the program. So imagine that you yourself are a program. Like I don't know, like you're a robot where you know, the interface is like somebody just coming up to you. So you imagine somebody comes up to you, you're like this interactive calculator. Don't imagine them like, you know, yet as like they're pressing buttons or anything else. It's just they have a request to you, right? They want to do some kind of math for you, right? So they want to add 1 and 1, and then you spit out 2. So we can take that. Let me So I always call these plans in here or something like this. So let's, you're imagining that yourself are this robot that somebody comes up to you, and what do they want you to do? Well, one thing they want you to do is say, like, add 1 and 1 for me. So write down the features that you want to be able to handle, that this program should be able to handle, right? Add 1 and 1 to me. Another feature, like after you get past like the very beginnings and you start like going through this, then we can stop imagining that you're a person and it's more of like, how are they going to interact with this? Well, we would imagine they just go into a terminal, like this, and they say add, maybe like they say your program add 1, 1 or something like that. Or maybe they could just say your program name 1 plus 1. So you have to actually now decide how are they going to interact with your program. Actually, like, do this on paper. Like, literally take out a sheet of paper and write down what it is that it looks like they do it. Now, if you have if you want it to be visual, you're gonna have to use some kind of like visual library. If you do web type stuff, there's a reason why everybody uses web. It's because it's just super common and it gives you a visual interface into code however you want. That doesn't mean you have to use Python. It just means that it's like every time you add something more like visuals, it adds more complexity. So at the beginning, I would suggest starting with something like this, where you do program name, and then that would probably spit out something like what would you like to do? Add like a menu type thing, like a menu type system where somebody comes up and says, okay, run the program. I would like to add 4. And then it's like, okay, you have 4, do that. And then write that program first. And now it's like, okay, well, this sucks. Because all of our programs, especially when we first do them, they suck. And then add in the next thing would be a how do you improve that? What's the next sort of like interface that you'd like to do to it to make it even better? And then figure out like, well, now that you have this set up, what can you change on it to make it like better and do a version 2.0? I would write it from scratch at that point, because in the beginning of our journey, building and burning, so like build something out, burn it down, build it up, burn it down, that really solidifies coding in our heads and how this all works. Does this make sense, or if I just sort of, am I more confusing than helpful? Wait, URC was another thing that didn't. Oh wait, they actually made a URC. Oh no. Okay, that's good. Excellent. So yeah, it's just practice. It's just practice and then building things and then trying them and playing around with them. Okay, I brought up several important facts, but each of those could be your own discussion. But you followed it though. Okay, excellent. I can make a case that Postgres isn't even a URI because Postgres is not a scheme registered with the IANA. Oh, because IANA has URI schemes. Oh, okay, so this is one of the things that I can't stand about the programming world, is because there are standards that aren't standards, or that they're poorly defined, and it's hard to figure out what the heck we're talking about. And that's just, I don't know. I don't like it. I am not a fan. So we're just going to say database URL and we're just going to stick with that. Okay. We're going to be fine. Okay. So Postgres, we did at localhost. Okay. And then 8433. And then this is going to be the port that the database is running on. I mean, something even more, I guess it's not even more confusing because these are all confusing, right? Something that's also confusing is the word database. Like, we have the database program running, and then inside of that database, we can create databases. And so when you say you connect to a database, generally speaking, you're talking about connecting to a specific database in the database. Which is just like, and then I really wish that they had like named it something different, like, oh, we launched the schema, but schema is its own thing because you can also have a schema in a database as well. And so you can have multiple schemas. I think the public schema is the default one for MySQL and Postgres and everything else. I've never really used alternate schemas, but it's possible and you can definitely do that. There's clusters, but those are also its own thing too. Like, you know, you wouldn't call the Postgres instance that I have running locally a cluster. Sounds like we just need to delete all the terminology and start over. Yeah, we just need like a reset event. Time to just reset all programming and start over from scratch and just name things properly. But like the problem is that that's not what's going to happen. We're going to end up with that XKCD, another standard like issue where it's like, okay, we're going to have a new name for everything. And then it's like, okay, well, you know, the Brooks Builds naming system versus the naming system that most other people use versus the naming system that, like, I don't know, Oracle uses internally. And the definitions of the columns in the table is also the table schema. Oh, right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Names. Like, we joke that names are like one of the most difficult things of like in computer science. And usually we're talking about things like figuring out what the name of the variable we want to name something is. But here it's like names of all the terminology because it's just inconsistent or it's murky on what you want to use, which is I used to, when I was teaching, be really, really like on top of, we need to be like, you need to use the right names for everything that you're doing. Hold on, cat came. But then now it's like, as long as you can communicate with each other, which means you need a deeper understanding about what those names that you're using reference, then you can actually have a conversation with each other. Consistency would just be good. Oh, well, that was fast. Consistency would just be good. Let's not read the connection string docs. Okay. Yeah. People can deal with murkiness, I think, but some students will always ask more details and make it confusing. Well, I would always tell students early on when I'm teaching them that I will be using what I call little lies, which is I'll just say, this is a URL. There is no other thing than URL. There is, and then, well, at the beginning, they're still students. They haven't like gone and started looking it up, so they don't know. But it gets us past the naming into the actual what the thing is that we're trying to do. And that's the important part. Later on, I say, so by the way, when I said there was only URL, I lied. There's actually multiple things that people might reference a URL. Let's go into that. And we have to have an entire lesson and discussion. But by that time, they have context. So the students don't get, they're going to get confused, but at least they're not going to be confused to the point where they don't even know how to load up something in the browser yet. I don't like that. Oh, that's the tough part about teaching. People can deal with murkiness, I think, but some students will. Oh wait, I already went through that one. Good way to say it. Yeah, thanks. Multiple hosts. Yeah, it's a thing. Okay, so so Postgres, the database. So this is where the database that we are connecting to. You might ask, isn't Postgres the name of the database? Let's do the name of the specific database that we are connecting to. Okay. Since the password is included in a .env file, okay, so it's important to do that. That's great. Okay, so now create the database URL environment variable. Lastly, set up diesel for the project. Okay, so running diesel setup. We'll need to have a Rust project already running. We'll get an error if we run this command in an empty directory. Could do cargo new my project. Okay, so we can do this with cargo new by project. Changing directories into the new project. And then running the command. Diesel setup. Okay, so I have diesel Rust course. Okay, so I don't want that there. Let's do diesel demo. We have our .env. Let's remove those. And so I can do diesel setup now. Okay, so if I do that, and I did it in the wrong order, this will be fine. Everything will be fine. Okay, so we're gonna start with you. And then we do you. And then we probably do you again. Okay. All right, so let's go through this. I want the .env there, .get ignore, cargo lock, toml. Let's get rid of the diesel toml and the migrations, and get rid of you. Then I run diesel setup, creating migrations directory at you. Let's also change this to be more LA. Now I have all these things in here. There we go. Okay. So the CLI installed, or I guess it's not installed. It's the CLI created a diesel.toml file for us. Which can be used to configure diesel. Let's actually link to documentation for the diesel COML. Diesel guides. I want where do you have documentation for configuration? Okay, oh, so this is everything. So perfect. Okay. The CLI created a diesel.toml file for us, which can be used to configure diesel. Actually, to configure the diesel CLI. The CLI also created a directory for migrations, which includes a default migration that sets up a what did you set up for us? Diesel managed updated at. You create a trigger. Wait, does this just add in and this just sets an updated at if it's set? Okay, so includes a default migration that sets up a trigger in the database to set the updated at column for a row if it's present whenever the row is updated. Okay, cool. And that's it. And that's it. We've now connected Diesel to Postgres and are able and are ready to write wait, did this also I don't think it created a schema file for us as part of this, right? Let's find out. So if I remove source, the schema, and we also move U2 again, and we do another diesel setup. No schema. Okay, so schemas later. So that's it. We've now connected diesel to Postgres and are ready to write to start writing migration to start using. I guess, how about this? We've now connected diesel to Postgres. That's it. We've done this. Great. Okay, so back to the README. Oh, you know what? I like to read through these. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to come back to here. Let's do a quick read through, and then that will probably be it for this stream. All right, so connecting diesel to Postgres. Objectives. Install the diesel CLI. Create the database URL environment variable. Set up diesel for the project. Install the diesel CLI. While it is technically possible to use diesel with just the library, the CLI makes setting up diesel and managing the migrations much easier and is highly recommended. To install the diesel CLI, follow the instructions in the Getting Started page for diesel. We can verify that the CLI was installed correctly with the diesel version command. Database URL environment variable. Diesel expects that we have a database connection URL set up in an environment variable named database URL. We can easily set this up with a .env file, as Diesel uses .env behind the scenes to autoload the contents of the .env file. We only need one line in the file right now, which should look like database URL, Postgres, keyboard cat, localhost 8433 Postgres. Let's break down the values of database URL, or the parts of database URL, which is called a connection string. Postgres : //. Yes, this looks very similar to web addresses, but is Postgres instead of HTTP. Most people these days now use HTTPS. This is the protocol of the URL. Now, is that true? Is it? I don't know if it's protocol. I don't know if protocol is the right name, but it's like in the protocol section. So, I guess. Scheme. Okay, this is the scheme of the URL. Postgres keyboard cat. This is the username and password for the database that we'll be connecting to. A colon separates the username and password. If the password is special characters, then they must be URL encoded. Localhost. This is the host name of where to find the database. In this case, the database is living on our computer, so we just go to localhost. If this was a hosted database, the host might look like, let's wrap this in something like that. :8433, the port that the database is running on. /Postgres, the name of the specific database that we are connecting to. Since the password is included in the .env file, it's important to add this to your .getignore file. We recommend that you do this immediately at the beginning of each project so you don't accidentally expose secrets to GitHub or wherever you're hosting your code. Running diesel setup. Now that we have the diesel CLI installed and have created the .env file, we can set up diesel for our project. We'll need to have a Rust project How about that? So we can set up Diesel. We'll need to have a Rust project already running, already created. We'll need a Rust project already created in the same directory that our .env file is in. We'll get an error if we run this command in an empty directory. We can do this with the cargo. Let's do init my project because that initializes a project inside of a folder without creating a new folder in it. So I like that. Then I don't need changing directories anymore. We can do this with cargo init my project and then running the command diesel setup. The CLI created a diesel toml file for us, which can be used to configure the diesel CLI. The CLI also created a directory for migrations, which includes a default migration that sets up a directory for migrations, which includes a default migration that sets up a trigger in the database to. We'll discuss migrations in more detail in another lesson. And that's it. We've now connected Diesel to Postgres. Perfect. All right. So I think that's good now. You're saved. Your X. Good. All right. So what do? We wrote connecting Diesel to Postgres lesson. And I'll go ahead and push that up. All right. So we've done, let's see, what did we get done today? We got, we verified introduction, set up Postgres database with Docker, and connecting Diesel to Postgres. Three technically out of I don't know, like 15 more or so lessons. So we'll see how it goes. Should be like, I don't know, the rest of this week and maybe next week writing these, and then we can start recording, which will also be fun when we get to that. But all right. So with that all being said, we don't have too many people here, so I think I'm going to go ahead and skip the raid. So with that, thank you everybody for hanging out with me today. I will be, the plan is to stream, obviously today, Tuesday, and Thursday this week. Wednesday, I'm going to the dentist office, so I can't stream then. And Friday, I've always reserved for my day job that I have to go and do contract work for. So so I'll be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time, and we'll be continuing working on these lessons. So I hope that you all have a great rest of your Monday, and I will see you next time. Bye.